that. We are not yet recording, but this gives us a chance to
fake it before we make it.
Check this out. No, you already made it on. I've got people listening to this and watching this, so I'd say we both made it,
Ready?
Tommy.
Wow.
Yeah, which is good. All right. Well, hey, we are gonna jump on live here in a moment. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, either live or not so live, you can still leave a question in the comments for Tommy, and I'm going to tag him on here. I know I've been able to live tag you before, so he'll be able to see and respond. This is going to be great because just so you know, I was single until it seemed like yesterday, but that yesterday was about actually almost 9 years ago now. So,
congratulations,
yeah,
Nathan.
but it's still no children. So I actually learned a lot from your podcast and you and your wife talking about blended families. And those of you watching on Facebook Live or not so live, you got to check out, from one podcaster to another. If you've ever been through blended families, if you've ever been through separation or relationship issues like that, I mean, I knew that was not a walk in the park at all, and very blessed in my family to have been, not really having to walk through that, or even have close family members not having to walk through that. It's very, very unusual. But you got to check out Tommy's podcast because he and his wife go into really high level of detail, and it's fairly raw. It's very, very transparent, and I just learned a lot just listening to the Boundaries episode on your podcast as well as the intro.
Oh, wonderful.
So
again, that was you?
Yeah, that was Tommy. Funny guy. He's got thousands and thousands of people listening to him, but it's a funny thing. That's
why I kid, Nathan. I do have a face for podcasting.
Yeah, and actually, should we say something about Good Men Project in your bio, because a lot of people know of that, or are you just trying to drive everything to blending the family? Or
well, let me give you a quick backstory, and so I don't bore everybody. But the Good Men Project is an online magazine. It's somewhat geared.
We're not recording for the podcast yet, just so you know.
But one of the things I was talking to the editors about is, I have a weekly column, and we were talking about creating a series. And so right now, I think they just published week 5 of this series. And quite honestly, Nathan, we're going to turn into a book next year, maybe, because it's going to be, in my vision, it's going to be a year-long series, so maybe not until 2019. But it's about each week. I took a leap of faith in my struggles and my wins, my losses during the week, and like I said, Nathan, we're going to hopefully turn into a book in a year.
So it sounds like a kind of a journal turned into a book. You win some, you lose some, week by week.
Yes, and right now it's too many losses. Except for this, Nathan.
Hey, it's a bright spot.
BeTheTalk.
It's a bright spot. Well, with that said, we are going to go live in 3, 2. We are live with Tommy Maloney. Tommy, are you ready to talk?
Hold on. Yes, I am.
Tommy Maloney is a parenting coach and a podcaster, author of the books 25 Tips for Divorced Dads and Why Not You, Why Not Me. His new book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., is coming out in fall 2018. Tommy Maloney, welcome to the talk.
Nathan, thanks so much for having me. As one podcaster to another podcaster, this is unusual because the tables are turned and I get to sit here and look like an idiot.
Well, the tables are turned, but it's the measure of any good podcasting host to make your people look like rock stars. So that's very much what I'm trying to do. Don't say something like that again, Tommy. We'll start right there.
But hold on, I am the best dressed guest you've ever had.
You are,
for the record.
You are the best dressed guest. That's hard to say that I've ever had up until this point. So, man, so your talk, Tommy, is called my dad's advice at 5:04 a.m. It sounded like to the casual viewer, you were kind of a reluctant parent at that time. It was a little bit. It sounded like almost a surprise, but it's not really a surprise. But you got some great advice from your dad at an early hour. Please take us behind the talk.
Well, I wouldn't say great advice. I'd say very unique. Behind the scenes of the talk was, I was a member of Toastmasters International, and they had posted that there were looking for speakers for TEDx Loveland, Colorado. I applied, and shockingly, was one of the speakers chosen for that event in 2015, right around June 2015, coming up on three years. Yeah, I don't do math very well, but it was a great experience. And one of the things I've learned as a speaker through watching some of the greats is to have really good preparation for the meat of your talk, not necessarily your opening and closing, because we had, I don't know if you had the same situation at your TEDx talk, Nathan, but we had speaker coaches that worked with you. And right before, the day before my TEDx talk, we did a dry run, a dress rehearsal, and my speaker coach said, well, I would like you to change this and this. I said, that's fine, but understand that come tomorrow, things are going to be different. Things are going to change. He's like, why do you say that? I said, because there could be some type of life event happening, and I want to incorporate that into the talk. And I think I'm very blessed as a speaker where I can really think on the fly, and that comes from many years as a corporate trainer. And sure enough, I changed my intro on the fly. Right before my TEDx talk, Nathan, what they had was, in between speakers, we had TED videos. And the TED video right before mine was about a gentleman, and I can't remember his name, but his family was all in Al-Qaeda. And he got out of the family business. He didn't want to be a part of that. Well, as you can imagine, that's a very down, a little bit depressing topic. And I'm trying to go, oh my gosh, how do I get this audience back up into my energy level? And one of the things I had read during that week was there was something out there called the dad bod. And the dad bod is a dad who's out there. He still works out, but he still has a little bit of that beer gut. And that is why I said to my speaker coach that this talk is going to change, and because of knowing the audience that they needed their energy level brought back up, I came out and said to the audience, and I turned sideways and I said, rocking the dad bod here. And some understood the joke, some didn't, but I got laughed and the energy level just came back up.
Yeah, well, and that's a really important dynamic, because some events like the one that I was at, that we had MCs to help with the management of the energy in the room, and that's something that we'll probably talk about at some point on this podcast, really. And we have talked, I have interviewed MCs to investigate that whole mysterious piece of energy, when speakers always complain about the room being, dead, or the room being down, or whatever, and having to bring the room up. What does that mean? Well, when you're the one on stage, Talk Universe, you know what that means, because that means like a magnifying glass to an ant. You are the ant right there, and you have to bring that room up, and it is not a small thing. So we'll get back around to that, Tommy. What I'd really love is for you to just summarize your talk so that we know what my dad's advice at 5:04 a.m. was really all about, why it was unique. Could you just give us a summary of that?
Yeah, my parents divorced when I was 5 years old, and through my young life, I didn't have a wonderful relationship with my dad until later on. Until college, and today my dad and I are like best friends, and I love my relationship with my dad. And unfortunately, there's too many times on my podcast where I've kind of picked on him, but I love my dad, and he knows it. He's one of my biggest fans. But the advice my dad gave me was very, you have to know my dad. He has a very dry sense of humor. So 5:04 a.m. represents when my son Connor was born. And of course, when your kids are born, you have to start calling the family, let them know. So my former
Facebook.
wife, yes, way before Facebook. I don't want to age us, but yes.
Which order are you on the phone call? That's directly proportional.
Yes. So, I called my former wife's mom first, and I called my mom, and then my former wife's dad, he had passed away, and so the next call was my dad. I called my dad, and I said, "Hey, congratulations, you're a grandfather. Connor was born at 5:04 a.m. He, I think 5 pounds or 6 pounds, 5 ounces, something like that." And, just the quick little details. And he said, "Hey, before I hang up with you, do you know what your job is, your role is as a father going forward?" And I didn't expect the question. I said, to love my son? He goes, "No, to screw him up as best you can." Okay, Dad, we'll talk later. And so I took that and just went running with it, but I reversed engineered it to talk about how I've sort of screwed up my son by spending quality time with him.
Well, and it almost it seems like perhaps your father was a Johnny Cash fan, because I'm thinking of that song, "The Boy Named Sue."
Yes.
It wasn't really about gender dysphoria or anything like that at the time that it was written. It was more about setting your kids up for a little bit of harshness in life so that they could toughen up. That's certainly probably a controversial notion in these more politically correct days. But you think that it was in that same vein? What do you think he meant?
Yeah, definitely. And, my dad, God bless him, because he didn't want to be a dad. And the funny thing is, that's how I started my talk, was I admitted to the audience I didn't want to be a parent, because I saw, my parents get divorced right in front of my eyes. I still have tattooed on my brain watching my dad leave. And I assume my dad didn't want me to go through the same trials and tribulations he did as a dad. And like I said, Nathan, I took that information, that advice, and I reverse engineered it. And, one of the things I tell dads is, especially when they have young kids and they need chaperones for field trips, be one of those dads. Take the day off. Go spend quality time with your kids. And that's because of my dad doing that with me, I took that and ran with it.
Tell me a little bit about, I know you've, and I've mentioned your podcast, and what I love about it is the transparency and the honesty. Tell me any kind of responses that you're getting, because instead of just coping on your own with some of the curveballs that you've had from life, Tommy, I see you paying it forward and really helping other people, if you will, even parenting other adults who are going through this transition, or even some might say crisis point, and you're actually parenting them and you're mentoring them in a really valuable way. So can you give me an idea of some of the stories of some of the people that you've heard from?
Well, one of the biggest things that, part of it was when we launched the podcast, it was, like you said, Nathan, it was my wife and I, and it was a great team. But she realized that because I come from a radio background, that she felt that this was more my thing. So as of now, it's been over a year where it's just been myself. But to answer your question, some of the feedback we have received is exactly what you're saying, is that one of our earlier episodes, and one of our most popular episodes, we talked about our finances. And even today, we still go through, and this is our second time around, and not to promote, but this is what works for our family, is we're going through the Dave Ramsey program. And like I said, in our early podcast episodes, my wife and I talked about our finances and how insane it was. When we got married, she had her bank accounts, I had my bank accounts, and we went on a podcast and talked, like you said, very transparent, saying this is not working. Here's what we're doing to help each other as a team develop better financial habits. So again, that's one of the biggest responses we get is the openness about our finances, the openness about when we first started dating. And I've written about this and I talk about this, and that is when my wife Ann and I were dating, we had this vow that if our kids didn't get along, then we weren't going to continue a relationship. And a lot of our listeners found that very odd, but they understood, because you don't want to add additional baggage coming into a brand new household. So that's probably the biggest two takeaways, Nathan, has been the financial piece and the dating piece.
Well, and those are absolutely huge. So, and Dave Ramsey, one of the best programs out there. I mean, I hosted a Live to Lead event, I think a couple of years ago here in my town, and he was the last speaker on it. It was piped right into the Chamber of Commerce. It was a great end to the event, and he always does a great job. Actually, I think he was number 2 on the event, or maybe number 1 on the event. It's been a little bit fuzzy on that, but so I know you're doing great work with the podcast, the books, everything else. We're going to kind of steer her right back to the TEDx talk that you gave, because it's about time for the Blitz round. Tommy, are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it, Nathan.
He's ready. He's just took a big, deep swig of coffee right there. So I'm going to ask Tommy a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and the performance of his talk. Here's the first one. Were you selected to speak, Tommy, or did you apply?
I applied.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
One more time.
Are you a memorizer? Are you an improviser? Or are you a blender?
Oh, I would say blender.
Well, and heavy improv from what you've already said earlier in the talk. So, yeah, definitely a blend. I would say tilting towards the improv from what I've heard from you already today.
Just a bit.
Just a little bit. Okay. So here's a fun one. Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I would say I'd be lying if I wasn't saying I was nervous, but I was in the zone. I definitely in the zone. But again, I have my own routine before a big speaking event, so it gets me in the zone.
What gets you in the zone? Can you tell us the routine, or is it proprietary?
No. It's one of those things. I go into a corner and I just mentally shut down and just I use the Headspace app, so a lot of pre-meditation, and that's it. It gets me into the speaking zone.
Headspace app, that's a new one.
It's a free app. It's all about meditation. I love it.
Right.
Love it.
Good deal. Here's the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Because I love speaking, I really had to. I think mine was I can't remember, 10 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes. So I really had to cut down the stories of my life to really have a flow for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I had my way, I would have been a 30-minute talk. But I'm really bad at losing focus. Obviously.
What is a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you besides that Headspace app?
I mind map my speeches. I mean, this book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. is right over my shoulder is my big giant whiteboard, and it's all mind mapped out. And that's something I use. I've even told other new speakers, try mind mapping, just doing a brain dump, and that helped me craft the speech and helps me craft my writing.
You're the first person on the talk, over 100 guests, that's mentioned mind mapping. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. What is the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
After the talk? Is that one of the...
Well, during or right... Well, you can slip that in. What happened after the talk?
Well, no, I'm going to change my answer. I'm a firm believer of visualization. And I visualize the talk as best I can. And there's a point in the talk where I talk about my son. And in the talk, I actually point to a section of the seating. And afterward, my wife said, because I didn't see my family before the talk, I love my wife. She knows she's always late. She was late, but she said to me afterward, how did you know where we were sitting? And I told her, I said, I saw it. I just visualized it and I knew. So that was probably one of the interesting parts of the talk, was knowing exactly where my family was sitting.
Oh, that is interesting. Wow. Well, hey, we've been talking with Tommy Maloney, who gave a great talk, which is entitled My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. And in a moment, we're going to swing right back to him for the final word of advice. But before we do, I want to let you know where you can go to. If you don't want to type that in, go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We'll have a clickable link. You can watch his talk, as well as you can connect with Tommy at blendingthefamily.com. blendingthefamily.com. Tommy, it goes by fast, and we're back to you for the final word of advice.
You know, I'm going to have to say my word of advice is, gosh, my head is racing right now. You know, live your purpose. And I know that's probably one of those new cliches, but just, you might not find your purpose today and might not find it tomorrow, but just be in service to others and, gosh, have fun. Life is too serious. This is not a dress rehearsal, if I can speak. This is it. This is life. Live life to the fullest.
Tommy Maloney, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your tips and wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks, Nathan, for having me.
All right, that's it. Great interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Take the rest of the day off.
And I think I have another 4 that haven't canceled. So I had a couple of cancellations. All right, Talk Universe, if you're watching this, listen to the week in review to find out and bring it over so that we can see it a little bit. Marcus. Yeah, Marcus is going to be on the talk in a couple of weeks. So
Marcus is one of my mentors.
Oh, awesome.
Love him to death.
Very, very good. So Talk Universe, go to the week in review tomorrow, where you're going to find out about some of the unique ground that we're conquering here today. I am going to wrap up with Tommy offline. Thanks everybody for watching. This is like a Vulcan. Sounds like the way that it splits on my screen. It's like a Vulcan, a weird hybrid Tommy and Nathan Vulcan hand meld right there. All right, everybody.